Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to show you some detailed instructions on changing a wheel hub and bearing on a Mazda CX9. This same procedure will work for the CX7. It'll also work for a Ford Edge. So if you're looking for some good detail along with some bonus material on how to use a shop press, then you need to stay right here. Wanted to put a minute or two of actual drive video in here just for the audio so that you could actually hear what a bad wheel bearing sounds like. If you hear that low humming noise right now, that's exactly what a bad wheel bearing sounds like. And the faster you get, the louder it gets. Sometimes it'll get a little bit higher pitched, but it'll just get steady louder and louder. And if you get on the freeway with a bad wheel bearing like this, you're definitely going to know it. You're going to definitely know that there's something wrong with your vehicle. But if you hear that low hum, more than likely you need to have your wheel bearings changed. So there you go. All right, before we get started, I just want to talk about a few things. First of all, I'm in a one-car garage, and if you can see here, you can see that this is a fairly tight garage. So you don't need a big shop and you don't need a lot of fancy tools. Now there are a few tools on this particular job that you're going to have, or you're going to have them done. And that of course is the hydraulic press, the shop press. You're either going to have one, or you're going to have to take these parts out and get them done. There's a lot of videos that show you how to do it without them, but to really get it done right, I really believe you have to have a shop press and have it done. So anyway, that's the only real set of tooling that I do have here that I'll get into later and show you. But I want to talk to you about safety. When you get ready to put this vehicle up, make sure you're using proper jack stands. Make sure that you're securing the vehicle, and make sure you chock the back of the tires. Do all the safety things that you need to do, okay, before we get into it. So I'm getting ready to go ahead and put the vehicle up. I'm going to break this tire loose, and then I'm going to take that center cap out. Then I'm going to show you how to go ahead and loosen the main axle bolt, the main axle nut, and then we're going to put the vehicle back down, and then we'll get on into the actual changing of the wheel bearing and the race. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done. But remember safety. Also, as a little tip, not that you necessarily need to do it, but I go ahead and I take the negative ground off, and I unlock the steering column because I want to be able to move this around, move this steering around and get to the bolts on the back of the hub easier. So I take the negative ground off, and then I unlock the steering column so I can just move that wheel around and get that done. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on hold, and then I'll be back when I get this ready to break loose. Okay, I've got the front rim off. And now I'm going to remove the center cap. So what you got on most of these vehicles, some of them are just they'll actually just have a little retainer clip in here, and you can just push the retainer clips out and just push the cap out. This one has a little ring in it, so you just got to work that ring loose and pop that ring out. There's the ring. Just put that aside somewhere. Some of them have the ring, some of them don't. Depends on what kind you got. And then you want to pop that out. And now I'm going to go ahead and put that rim back on, and then I'll show you how to break loose the main nut. Okay, I've got the tire back down on the ground. I usually put 3 or 4 lugs back in, and I'll just tighten it back up. I don't torque anything down. I just make sure it's nice and firm on the rim. Put it back down on the ground so that you've got you know, you've got the weight of the front of the vehicle back down on the ground. That's what you need. Now, if you'll notice on this nut, okay, the old nut has been crimped. In this particular case, it's been crimped twice. Some will, some won't. But this one has been crimped. A lot of times you can just go ahead and you can take a nice big breaker bar and you can, you know, you can just force through that. But generally what I'll do is I'll take a little cold chisel and a hammer, and I will just go in and just open these up just a little bit, because you're going to replace this anyway. So see, this one's dimpled right there. And then there's a dimple here on the top. Just a little bit more here. An old screwdriver works well if you don't have a cold chisel. You just want to break that up just a little bit. Okay. So now what I've got here is I've got a nice 3/4 breaker bar, and this is a 36 millimeter. That's what this particular size is. Each size may vary. Most of them are going to be around a 36, or a lot of them will be a 32. So anyway, I've got a 36 here. I'm going to go ahead and put a bite on this and see if I can break this open. So I'm going to have to go get a cheater bar, because this is on there tougher than I can get on. So I'm going to grab a cheater bar real quick. Believe it or not, I actually broke my breaker bar trying to get this off with a cheater bar, and did not get this to break loose. So after doing that and then breaking off an adapter on a 3/4, I decided to go ahead and get a little tougher on this. This is probably the toughest nut that I've had to take off of one of these wheel bearings. So anyway, what I've done is I went and got some of the yellow benzomatic, and this yellow burns a lot hotter than the other two, and you need to be really careful with it because it does burn so hot. But anyway, I went ahead and got a bottle of this. I'm going to go ahead and heat this up, and then I also borrowed from a friend of mine a cobalt impact wrench, and we're going to heat this up and then put the impact wrench on it and see if we can't get this to break loose. If that doesn't happen, then I don't know exactly what I'm going to have to do. I may have to actually get the torch out and cut this off, which is always very dangerous. So anyway, let me see what I can do, and I'm going to work on this, and then I'll speed this up and we'll see what happens. Okay, I'm back. After an amazing amount of difficulty, more difficulty than I've ever had on any type of nut like this, what I ended up doing is I ended up getting a can of the yellow, like I discussed previously, and I heated this up to an absolute cherry red. And I pulled out, I tried the impacts my friends brought, nothing worked. I had a couple different impacts, one from my neighbor, one from a friend, one stronger than the next. Neither one of them touched it. So what I ended up doing is I pulled out an old Harbor Freight wrench that I had, and this is a 3/4 inch. I bought the set of sockets from Harbor Freight and took the rim off. I got a 4-foot cheater bar and put that on it. Took a Allen wrench, slipped it right in between the caliper and the rotor, and I literally stood on this after I heated it up with the benzomatic till it was cherry red, and finally it broke loose. Once it broke loose, I didn't have any issue after that. It was fairly simple, but that's what it took to break this out. I've never had one do it before. Hopefully I'll never have one do it again because I still have to do the other side later. But I'm going to go ahead and get on with the disassembly. Now, a lot of mechanics and guys that you'll see on YouTube and different places, they'll take this brake caliper unit off in whole, and they'll set it on the side. They'll hang it, and that's all fine and good. But when you get right down to it, when you get ready to put this back on, more than likely, you need to depress the cylinder inside. There's a lot of things you need to do. Me personally, I want to line everything up and make sure it's all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just break this caliper down, hang the caliper, take off the caliper bracket, and then take the rotor off, and then get down to it. I'm going to do it step by step, and if you already know how to do it, then you don't have to worry about it. But I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and we'll just let this roll, and I'll just keep working. Now, some guys do a lot of different things when they hang these up. I just take, this is just a piece of an old clothes hanger. But a lot of guys use bungee cords. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of different ways to hang it. Doesn't matter to me as long as you hang it. Get that weight off of it. So I always slide mine around to the back, get it out of the way. If you need to remove the side holding clip for it, do so. On this one, I don't think we need to. As long as we don't bind that up, we should be fine. So I'm glad I've kind of looked at this, because the anti-squeak pad has come off on this. It may have just come off whenever we took it off, but it doesn't look like it to me. So I'm kind of happy that I took this off, because that could have been a problem. So you don't really need them on there. It's just something the manufacturer does. But I won't put it back on. I'll just put some anti-squeak lube on it. So I'm going to lay these back out so I know which one goes where. Take the back one off too. See, that's the way it should have looked, but anyway, that's the back and front. And everything looks pretty normal on this. There's no real wear on it, so I don't think it hurt it, but it might have, that might have been some road noise or something that I had. Not really sure. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the bracket off, get it done. And if you notice, I always use a rubber hammer. You can use whatever you want to, whatever you're comfortable with. But you'd be surprised what a rubber hammer will do. And it usually will give you that little extra oomph that you need to get something off without destroying anything. So it's always good to use that. I do, and it works well. Just keep pressure on it. Okay, some of these rotors, including this one, actually have a retaining screw in them. It's not needed. It's just something that the factory puts in them when they run them down the assembly line to keep the rotors from coming off, which is fine. But these can really get seized up in there, and then you got to it takes a tool that you actually hit with a hammer to get them off. So once I got mine off, I just went ahead and left them off. And just pull this off. And see, I had some anti-seize on the back of that, so it just rolled right off, and that's the way it should. That's the way it should be. You see, you can still see that where I had that all set up and lubed, so there's really no issue with it. Still looks nice and clean. So I'm going to go ahead now and take this bolt off, and actually I'm just going to loosen it up for now. It's already loose, and I'm going to go ahead and start taking these loose. Get the shock loose, and then got to pull that bottom control arm off, and I think that'll probably do it for this. So I'm going to go ahead and get to working on these. Alright, I'm back with a breaker bar. I'll go ahead and get this popped off here. Okay, I went ahead and removed that clip and went ahead and positioned that back up and gave myself plenty of room so I can go ahead and get my breaker bar over here on this side. It'll be a lot easier. These are torqued down to about 150 pound, so they're pretty snug in there. And again, I've put new shocks on this vehicle. This vehicle's got about I think it's 168,000 miles on it. It's 2007 Mazda CX9, and I've kept the maintenance up on this ever since we got it. So it's had new shocks put on, all new under parts, different things. So it's not so difficult to get this off like it would be if this was a 2007 that had never had the shocks or anything removed. So this has had a lot of regular scheduled maintenance, so it's actually a lot easier to do than most people think. So I'm going to go ahead and see what else I need to do here. These are already loose. I still got to get a cotter pin out over here. It came out pretty easy. And I got to take this sway bar off. And the pinion over here on the right. I'm going to spray that down real quick. And that's probably I'm guessing, but I'd say it's probably 18, 17. It's a 17. And don't be afraid to move this around. I mean, you know, that's why I left that out of gear, so I could move it around and get to things better, easier. And you see right there, that's where I took the pin out. I've got this loosened up to the top of the threads, and I'm going to go ahead and pop this just a little bit and try to loosen it up. And if not, I've actually got a bolt puller that can take that and pop it out, just so you see exactly what I'm working on over there. But once I get that done, I may have to I got to take the control arm off the bottom for sure, but I may have to take this one loose as well, this little support. I'm not sure, but we'll keep rolling on it and see what happens. All right, I didn't have to use a puller. All I did was just pop it with a hammer right on the side of the casing, and it popped right down. So there wasn't really any issue there. Let's go ahead and take this out. Don't forget to keep that cotter pin. I'm going to need it, and this just falls right off, no issue. Okay, so now I've got that removed. I'm going to go ahead and take these two loose and see how much play I need and what I got to do on the bottom there. It's always good to put something back in there. I actually like to use a chisel, round chisel. So I'll grab it real quick. I always like to use one of these to kind of keep things in place, pry things out. These bolts too are different sizes. The one on top is a straight bolt without any curvature to it. I think it's a little longer than the other one, I can't remember, but one of them is definitely larger and has a curvature on the back. So make sure you get those in right, because if you don't, you're going to have a problem when you put it back together again. Just shake this up a little bit. Should come on out. All right. Keep myself organized here. All right. Yeah, it looks like that's going to have plenty of play to get that out. I'll go ahead and leave this in here. The reason I do is because when I take this bolt off, the weight of that's going to be on it. It's still going to be in the shaft. So this is the bolt that gave me so much trouble. And I mean, we definitely had a war with that one. So that nut was a bear. Anyway, got that off. Let's see if this is loose. It's not. So what I'll do is I'm going to take and just put this back on, just so I have plenty of threads on it. Give me something to hit with a hammer. It should be loose. Yeah, it's out. And now let's pull this out. See what we got here. And there we go. That's loose in there. Now all we got to do is take this off. And what I see here is a retainer clip and one small bolt that holds that into the arm. So get that taken off. We should be ready to pull that out. And I use Blaster. I get it from Walmart. You can use any kind of penetrating oil you want. This is pretty good stuff. Not the cheapest, but it does a good job. And again, don't be afraid to move that around everywhere you need it. And I also forgot to pull that sensor off. So I'm glad I didn't break that right there for that sensor. So let me get a 10 for that. And I'll be right back. This has been one of those projects where everything you try to get done has gone the wrong way, but at least we got it. So this 14 nut that was holding that on would not come out, and so I ended up having to heat it up again with a little propane torch before I could get that to break off. So anyway, I went ahead and got that out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread that knuckle just a little bit so that I can loosen that that bolt up and get that out of there. I'm going to go ahead and soak that down first. Let's see if I can ease that bolt out. Probably going to have to get another nut for that. I don't know that I probably boogered that one up a little bit too much. Screwdriver works for this, you know, or a little chisel. I think I'm probably going to try a little chisel to get it to go. Let's see what I got here. Yeah, that chisel was about right. See, now I just loosen that up. Now, before you pull it, just check everything, okay? You don't want to tear, you know, like I forgot that that sensor. You want to make sure you got everything. So I've already got this out. I've got all the bottom part out. Everything is out. And this is loose. So I'm just going to take this off to the side here. Or just pull it straight up. Alright. There you have it. So now that that's out, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean everything up. And there's a ring here which I'll set up for on the bench. Show you how to take that off, show you how to press the bearings out. But I'll go ahead and get it up higher so we can see it well. And then I'll be back. So what we've got here is we've got the old assembly out. I've got it up on the bench. I cleaned it all up, just took a good look at it. The bearing was definitely shot. You can hear the sound of the bearing out when you spin it. So in front of it, you know, I've got a new hub, I've got a new bearing, new retaining clip, and a new nut. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to get the shop press all set up, and I'm going to show you how to press this wheel hub out, and we'll flip it over, and then we'll press the bearing out. So I'm going to go ahead and get that stuff set up, and then we'll be back. Okay, so what I did was I took the assembly and I put it in a 12-ton central machinery shop press, which I got over at Harbor Freight. These run you, if you catch them on sale, they run about $129, and with a 20% coupon, you can get out of there for about $109. So I picked this up, and it worked just right. I went ahead and set up a couple of wood blocks underneath it, leveled it out, and then this is just a standard, you know, one of the torque style 32 sockets, which fit perfectly in there to knock the wheel hub out. So I went ahead and pressed that out. I'm going to go ahead and knock it out the rest of the way, and I'm going to flip it over, and then I'll show you how to go ahead and get out the bearing itself. Okay, I went ahead and I knocked the wheel hub off. When I did, what happens sometimes, matter of fact most of the time, is when you knock this out of there, part of the bearing will stay on the wheel hub, and you can see that the bearings are exposed in there right now. They didn't look too bad. They've got a little bit of wear on them, enough to get the road noise that we were looking at. But anyway, this has got to get taken off so that we can put this back in here, and so we can press the bearing back out. Also, if you notice, there's a little retaining clip like this in there. We're going to take that out as well, and then I'm going to go ahead and knock this off real quick. And the best way to do that is with one of these style bearing clamps, bearing breakers. And what that'll do is that'll fit right in there like that. And then we'll be able to pull that back off. So I'm going to go ahead and get this set up. All right, so we're back, and what I've done is this is what you call a bearing splitter. And I've set up the wheel hub in the bearing splitter. I've grabbed that bottom portion of the bearing, got it set up in the splitter. You got a couple. So I have a couple different sizes. If you don't have one of these, whoops, because these aren't common, you can get these at AutoZone. You can rent them on their program for tool rental. I think the large one is $50 and you get your money completely back when you turn it back in. So just go to AutoZone or any one of your local stores. They'll probably have it on the rental program. You can rent it for free with a deposit, and this really makes this job a whole lot easier to press this off. Okay, So I've got that ready to go, and I'm going to go ahead and get it put in the press, and then I'll be back and show you how to press it off. All right, so we got the hub off, and now I'm looking at the back side of the actual assembly itself. I want to go ahead and get this ring off, and you can try to get it off with a set of ring pliers. I don't know that that'll work, but we're going to give it a try. If that doesn't work, we'll use just a regular screwdriver if we have to. Let's see if we can get this to work. Okay, all you got to do is get it started. Just take this on around till it pops out, and then you can go ahead and take that out if you want to, but we're going to use it to press it. And then I want to get this cover off. It's kind of form-fitted on there, but I'd really like to get this off, but it doesn't look like I'm going to get to it without destroying it. And I don't want to destroy it. So we'll try pressing it back through. Yeah, we probably can do it. I can probably do it. I'm just going to have to make sure that I get it lined up properly. So I'm going to get this set up on the press, and then we'll see what we can do from there. Okay, so I've got this all set up. I've got a couple of these metal spacers put in. These came with the 12-ton shop press. I've got everything set up, and I'm going to give this a shot, see if we can get this to come out of there. And there we got, and the bearings out. All we need to do now is clean this up and get it ready. Put the new one in. We'll be back shortly. Okay, I'm back, and I have the assembly positioned in the press. And if you'll notice, I had to use some shims here. I used one of the standard black pieces that I got with the actual shop press. I used one of these on the other side, and then I shimmed it up with some straight metal pieces. You want to make sure that this is nice and smooth, flush, squared up going back in. You don't want it to bind anywhere on either side. And I also applied just a little bit of this, just multi-duty complex, just high temperature grease, just to allow it to slide in. I also put some on the inside as well. So I've got everything ready, and I'm going to give this a little push and see what I can do with it. You just want to take your time here. This is everything, putting this bearing in. So I want to make sure it goes in nice and smooth. Any kind of binding at all, just stop like that and just reposition. Looks like it went on in. Yep, it did. So let's just push it on and going pretty smooth now. I'm going to go to the top of the jack. I don't know if this will have enough jack on it to get it all the way in, but it may. So make sure you seat it in there well. All right. Pull this back out, take a look. You notice that spacer I got, this is out of that same kit that I got at Harbor Freight. It's 81 millimeter, and that fit exactly perfect on this bearing. So let's pull this out. Take a look at it. And it looks like it's perfect. Okay, so last step in this is to get this retaining ring back in. So I'm going to try to do that right now. Okay, you see right there, I got to make sure that I get that in there. It's not quite in all the way around. Make sure it locks in. Just check it, make sure. That looks good. Okay, so we got that in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up so that I can put the hub back in on this side. So we've got the new hub right here. Make sure you line the guard up the way it went back on, and then dimple the guard back in. There's a dimple point right on the back of the assembly. Make sure you dimple that back in so it doesn't get loose later on and make a bunch of racket. So anyway, make sure you take pictures before and after so you know where to line it up. This is where mine was, and I've put it back on now and dimpled it, and then now I'm ready to go ahead and put it in the press. All right, let's give this a shot. Yeah, this one's going in a lot easier than the others went out or went in, so I think we're in pretty good shape here. Just make sure you seat it all the way in. Don't overpress it either. Okay, I believe that's probably good enough. We'll pull it out and check it. Okay, pressed in, ready to go. Wheel bearings nice and loose. I think we're in pretty good shape. So we'll go ahead and get this in and get everything set back up so you can watch me put it back together again. Okay, we're ready to get finished with this job. Before we go any further, make sure you use anti-seize lubricant. I don't care what brand. Make sure you hit that shaft with anti-seize, or you'll wish you had later on. So make sure you do that. Get that out of the way. We're going to go ahead and put this knuckle back on and go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse what I did before. I'm going to go ahead and set it down into here, put that one back on, slide the shaft in at the same time, and work my way back up. So I'm just going to let it run, and I'm going to go ahead and get this done. Just showing you a quick shot here about that bottom control arm. Got that put back in. Got the bolt put back on, cleaned up, and there's a little cover there. Put that cover back on. Also got the axle started while I was at it. Now I'm going to go ahead and torque that down, and then I'm going to keep going. Okay, I'm going to go grab a torque wrench, check the torque specs to see what those are. Make sure you check your torque specs for each one you do. The CX9, CX7, the Ford Edge, and the Ford Eclipse are all basically the same, so this process and procedure will work for all of them. Make sure you check the specs on your torques and don't over torque, and make sure you get them in there good. If you want to use anti-seize and everything that you should put those back on, make sure you do so. And I'll keep on going. Everything looks good so far. The bottom's back together, and go ahead and get the top started now. Once you get that slid in, be a good idea to go ahead and put the bolt on. Kind of hold that in there, keep it from running around. Also kind of lines everything else up too. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that new one. And unlike a lot of them that are scripted and have done this a dozen times, everything you're seeing here, I'm doing it as I go. So we make mistakes and we just leave them there. So anyway, get that on there and just use a socket and tighten it up a little bit. Just snug it up. We're going to have to put a serious torque wrench on this one, but getting this in here will help us line everything up. Okay. Now that helped line everything up there. So remember what I said about those bolts. When you're putting those bolts back in here for the shock support, make sure you get them right. Just so you don't lose the one, then you can work the other one back in. Which shouldn't be near as hard. I'm not going to say it won't be, but it shouldn't be. Okay, grab that nut that I dropped. So I am going to go grab a torque wrench and I'll go ahead and tighten these up. Then I'll go ahead and put the sensor back in and make sure it lines up. I don't believe there's any issue with it because I think it only has one way, but some of them do, and some of them actually have a notch on the back of the assembly that it has to go in right where that retaining ring is for the bearing. So watch what you're doing back there. If you've got one of those models, that sensor actually slides right up in between that retaining ring so that there's a magnet on the back of that bearing, and that magnet has to line up. So even the magnet has to be put in right. In this particular one, it doesn't have to because the sensor doesn't work off of the actual bearing. It works off of the back of the front axle. So I don't have to worry about it on this one. But if you've got a vehicle that does, you may make sure you do some research, or you'll be putting that back together and then that sensor won't go back in there, or that sensor won't be hitting that magnetic portion of the bearing and you won't have the right signal going to that sensor. So make sure you check that out on your vehicle so that you don't have any issues there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this torque down and then we'll come back. Okay, I've got everything torqued back down except the main nut, and I haven't put on the I'm getting ready to put the actual rim and everything back on the rotor. But everything's been torqued down here and in the back. Everything seems to fit up well. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this put together. The last thing we'll do is tighten that main nut, because we want to have this all locked in and set up right so that we can hold the rotor in place and hold that nut in place. And then we'll torque that down with the biggest torque wrench I can find. It's 174 to 200 foot-pounds. So check your vehicle and make sure you know what your foot-pounds are. I'd say it's going to be pretty high, and you want to make sure you get that right. You don't want to be driving down the road and then have an issue. All right, I'm going to go ahead and grab my torque wrench. I'm going to torque these down, and I'll be back in just a few minutes. There is a little clip right on the back that's made out of plastic, so you got to be careful with that, otherwise you'll break that off. But that's the way it should go in. So I've got my sensor in, I've got this back on, everything looks pretty good. This looks like it's compressed plenty to get that back on with, so I don't think there's going to be any issue there. We'll give it a try here real quick. Make sure you take care when you put these in, because I don't know if last time I didn't maybe tear that one up. I'm not sure. So anyway, be careful with it when you're putting it back in there. If I did tear it up, I screwed up. Oh, I gotta pull that back out. I forgot to put the lube on that. And I want to talk about that for just a second, because you should never neglect that. That's what allows your calipers to slide in and out properly when they're self-adjusting. And when you do it, this type of grease is what I recommend. This is Caliper Grease. I don't care what brand. I'm not into the brand deal, but make sure you actually use Caliper Grease that's designed for caliper bolts. You know, it keeps your brakes quieter. It's synthetic. It doesn't overheat. So make sure you do that. If your caliper bolts aren't in good shape, that can lead to sticking, all kinds of wear on your actual rotor and the actual pad setup. So make sure that if these bolts have any kind of bad grooves in them or anything like that that keeps them from springing back, make sure you swap them out. It's about 20 bucks and it's well worth it. Also, one of these caliper bolts is larger than the other one, and I believe I put the wrong one in. I'm gonna check it. Yep, that's what I did. The large one goes on the top, the smaller one goes on the bottom. It's always nice if you can put a socket on these, but you can't always do that because of the lines. But, if you can, save you some time. These don't get any type of seizing or anything on it. Just the regular lube for the caliper, that's it. So I'll go ahead and torque this up and I'll be back. Okay, I got everything put back together. Everything's torqued down to spec. Make sure you check your own specifications for your vehicle. I set an Allen wrench in and I went ahead and torqued this to about 185 pounds. On this particular model of CX9, it's 175 to 200 foot-pounds. So I went about 185 pounds, which was super, super tight. So I don't think there's any issue there. So that's done. And I've got everything basically ready to wrap up. Gonna go ahead and just put some regular multi-duty grease on my new studs. First time getting the nuts on. I'll make sure we lube them up. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and grab the rim and tire and get that mounted back on, and I'll be ready to take everything down. So we'll be back when I have this back down on the ground. Okay, this is the same road that I was driving in the beginning of the video. Same speed, basically everything is the same, and the car's practically quiet now. So this is what it sounds like afterwards, and I don't know if the audio is good enough or not, but I'll add it anyway. Thanks, YouTubers, for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them below in the remarks column. And if you liked what you saw, please give us a thumbs up. Thanks a lot and have a great day.